Today, we'll be talking about how to expand overseas with SEO and SEM tips. But before that, I'd like to get to know you. Tiff, can we have the first poll? I'd like to know who we have in the audience today so that we can cater more to your needs. Right, so we have mostly business owners and some marketing managers and directors. Okay, great. So I'll know who I'm speaking to and I'll share more in these areas. All right. Okay. All right, so a little bit about ourselves. So SEOciety, L is not a spelling error. We are actually a social enterprise started in 2012. We are definitely a digital, front-facing digital marketing agency. So we believe in doing good marketing for our clients, bringing value, but also we believe in doing good. So we conduct training for people with disabilities, and also some of our team members are also part of this community with the people with disabilities. We have about 70% of them. But yeah, they would do just as well as any of us. So when we first started, it's not a spelling error, like I mentioned, it's SEO. We first started doing Google, but definitely we have grown into social media areas over the last few years. So started in 2012 and now looking also into the Chinese market. Here we have our Chinese team being able to look into WeChat, Baidu, and I'll speak a little bit more about Baidu later because it's part of the SEO, SEM as well. And then this is how, the different channels for the China market, because Google and Facebook are all banned in China. So this is another area that we look into. All right, so these are some of our clients. We do integrated marketing, both Chinese and English marketing together. So these are some of the clients that we have served over the years. For the healthcare side, we mostly do SEO, SEM, and that's where we'll be talking more about today. So a little bit of self-introduction. I've always been in the IT digital field. Worked in the Silicon Valley in 2010 until 2010 in the US, and then I came back to Singapore to start this company. So right now, the company also, we are a Google partner. Even in these COVID times where a lot of marketing expenses get cut, we are on road to spend about 315,000 for our clients on Google Ads. So we've conducted some trainings with Nanyang Poly, SIRS, SG Enable. So yes, let me, so that was a spiel about me. But here, I'd like to get to know you, where your company stands in terms of doing SEO and SEM. So we'll be expecting two questions. One is regarding SEO and SEM. Oh, okay, we do have quite a number who have not started on doing SEO for the website, but this is actually the great opportunity because, you know, with COVID, a lot of things are going online. Having SEO for your website is a good way to get visibility online.
Okay, I think majority of the participants has already voted. So
yes.
Let us
okay, go to the next question. Okay, so this is SEM. SEM is a Google advertisement. So have you been paying Google good money to get visibility?
Okay, I believe Jing Yan, there's a lot of work from you on your
Good. I mean, I'm prepared to share. So I just wanted to have a sense of how much the audience would know of SEO, SEM. So since most of our audience here have not done SEO or SEM, later on I will do a bit more sharing of the fundamentals before we talk about going overseas.
Oh, yes, and here you go.
Okay, thank you. So most of us have not done any form of Google Ads yet. That's okay. That's great. I mean, actually, that's the opportunity for us to learn here today then. Okay, so since most have not have not gone into SEO, SEM, so let me show you, this is how a typical site looks like when you first Google, right? So certainly you have the paid ads at the top. So this is the prime real estate area, is Google's money-making machine. So no matter how well you do your SEO, it's not going to take over the ads because that's always the top part. And keep this in mind if you're looking on a handphone or a mobile, this number of ads here usually will take up almost all your mobile space. So typically people have to scroll past to go down to what we call the search engine results, Google organic search results. I'll share a bit more. Okay, so here is an in-depth look. Mostly because a lot of people are using handphones these days, Google tends to put the maps first. So you can see straight away there's directions, there's your website, and sometimes there's also a button to call. And this is what we call under Google My Business. And then later on comes the part where you have the website links. So you can see that these maps and the listings is actually very important for businesses, especially for those that have physical locations. Let's say if you are retail or a clinic, you have to make sure that your address is correctly put to ensure that customers can find you easily. Okay, and then what is SEO really? It's free organic traffic from the search engines. So no matter how many times people click on your link, you do not have to pay Google. And a lot of times, people who are tech savvy, you know, I'm sure many of you here also, you tend to scroll past the ads and go down to the organic search results. So there's the increased credibility, perceived credibility of the website. And then of course, the website can only be found when people are searching for relevant keywords to your industry. So here is very targeted keywords. Targeted traffic coming in because people are searching for you before they click into Google. All right, but then there are some limitations. The number of targeted keywords tend to be limited by the website. So for example, if your website content doesn't mention knee surgery, you know, you don't expect magic to happen and your website to be ranking for knee surgery. So it's always think about who is Google's audience. Google's audience are people who are searching. So it's important that you have keywords inside your website that are relevant to your industry. But regardless of how well your content is written, it still takes about 3 to 6 months before we see good results, like being in top 10 of Google. And you need to continuously manage it because Google algorithm is changing and there's always new competition. And no matter how well you rank well on Google, it doesn't help in your Google Ads. So like I mentioned, it will never be at the very top page because there will always be the ads. Yeah. Okay. So next, we'll talk about Google Ads. So you can see here, there's a few different types of ads here. Shopping ads is actually now very common, which is really good for retailers because again, it has images, it has pricing so that, for example, if your e-commerce site is very easy for you to put your information out there. And when people are interested, they can click directly on it. So again, shopping ads are always on top of search ads. Search ads here we see at the bottom are the text ads. Search ads are what shows up when you are searching for it. And let's say if you go to a website like Channel News Asia, you will see also some ads there. These are what we call display ads. Can be in the form of text, image, or videos. And sometimes, let's say if you visited a website and then after that you keep seeing the same ads from that website come up, is what we call remarketing. It's as if the ads is following you all the time, right? So this is a way of keeping the business, the advertiser's business top of mind. And it's very common way of getting your current customers to return back to your website, okay? So of course, there's good and bad of Google Ads as well. Again, it's a pull strategy. When people are searching for it, you are top of mind. Immediately, once you start paying Google, you would be able to launch your ads straight away to customers. And you can be very targeted. You can buy the keywords that are relevant to your industry. And you can control the budget. So for example, I only want to test $5 a day. When the ads is clicked on, if the budget runs out, then there won't be any ads being shown again. Of course, this also is a limitation because once your budget runs out, there's no visibility. typically is great for, let's say, if you have seasonality effects. For example, now Christmas is coming, your website is not ranked for Christmas gifts or Christmas wreaths kind of keywords. It's okay, you can buy the keywords that are related to that area, and then immediately you'll get visibility on Google. But again, it can be costly in the long run, and it has very minimal impact on your organic search results. So no matter how many times people click on it, it doesn't mean that your organic search results will improve in rankings. Okay, so I'd like to, that was a little introduction to SEO, SEM. Now I'll go dive into overseas expansion. But before that, I'd like to know, what is the your current company situation? Are you all ready for overseas expansion? Okay, so we have a good number already overseas. Yeah.
I believe
that's
Singapore
really
is
good. Yeah.
I believe in Singapore, majority of our companies are all in overseas markets. Yeah.
So we have some of us, about a third of us, thinking of going overseas, but already a good majority, a good number are actually already overseas and looking to grow some more. That's awesome. Yeah. Really, this is what we're here for today. All right. So we're looking at growing overseas. Really, the world is your oyster. It's so big. Where do you even start? Especially if you don't have any overseas connections. This is a roadmap that I like to suggest that we can use. Right? So first of all, we look into discovering new markets. How can we narrow our search to relevant markets which would be useful for us? Then from there, we'll look into how do you test the market, because culturally and consumer behavior is all different throughout the different markets. What can you learn from these markets? So we'll be talking about some of the techniques to test the market. And of course, then how do you localize and refine your strategies so that you can optimize your sales from there? Yep. So first of all, discovering new markets. We want to look into what's the demand, right? I mean, after all, you want to sell to a place where there's good demand for your products or services. So are there people searching for similar keywords already? In your similar keywords in your industry? Or how big is the market that we are looking for these products and services? Because after all, the reason why I want to grow overseas is because Singapore is rather small. So how big is this potential market? And then we think about the flip side. What is the supply? How many competitors are there already selling such products and services? What's the competition like? Are you going to an area that's completely saturated? Or is the cost of marketing going to be very high? And is it going to be worth your ROI? So these are some of the criteria we like to think about when we talk about discovering new markets. Okay, so first of all, how do you know what's the demand? The good thing is when you want to do SEO, SEM, there's many Google tools that we can leverage on. So one of it is this tool called Think with Google. So Think with Google, it has many data points, because you know what? Everything that you are searching on Google is on Google. So Google use all these data to create these tools to help us to do marketing. So Think with Google, it gives you a lot of data points, and you can customize according to the areas as well. So there are certain tools that you can use to research. So for example, here we have this tool called the Market Finder. Okay, so it's helping you to identify which are the potential markets that are already buying products that are similar to yours, and then are they good markets to enter? Okay, so for example, with Market Finder here, we put in a URL, and then you put in the categories that are related to your industry, and then just let Google run its magic. Right, and then here, for example, we see that, okay, US, Germany, and UK are actually very big markets for us. But in this case, let's say if we don't have a physical presence there, or we don't have people to tap on, no networks, you know, how can we then look into the countries that we want, right? So in this case, for example, we can also look into the trends within the country. So let's say if we don't have business context, that's also okay. We can look at what some of the trends to decide whether is it worthwhile to go in and when is a good time to go in. So seasonal effects, like I mentioned, some retailers, Christmas season is a good time of selling. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, all this. So for example, in this case, you can see there's much more interest in this particular Moss products in the area in the second quarter and also in the last quarter of the year, right? And then because the countries are so big, you know, what are the cities that we want to target? The whole country is, we may not have enough resources to target the whole country, then we can target cities within the areas, within the countries, and this Google Trends will tell us what are the good areas to target within that particular country. All right, and then how do we know how big is this market, right? Because just now those were just very broad overview numbers. Then we use Google's tools. This is Google's database under Google Ads. So this one, even if you are not buying Google Ads, you can access this. It's a free tool. It's a platform that we use usually for Google Ads. So whatever you are searching in Google is registered here in the database and can give you good numbers like what is the number of searches per month, the number of competitors, and also what's the cost. And the cost of keywords is also a good way to see how much is the competition out there. Then you would have a better sense of your ROI, okay? So in this case, we look into this tool called the Keyword Planner. Keyword Planner, you can key in words that are relevant to your industry. So in this case, for example, I wanted to look into UAE because for my client, they have some prospects there in UAE. And we look at some of the keywords. Oh, so for example, we type in moss wall, artificial plants at the top, green wall, and synthetic turf. Then you have a better sense of what is the specific numbers, and then what's the competition, and also what's the cost if, let's say, I were to pay Google, right? In this case, the specific numbers will only come out for paid accounts, but I highly suggest you to buy some ads on Google so that you can have access to these specific numbers, because the accuracy of the data will actually help you to optimize your campaign a lot more. Yep. Otherwise, you will get a range. So for example, for artificial plants, you will get a range of like 100 to 1,000. So of course, the variance is very big. And in this case, it is worthwhile to look into the specific numbers by paying Google a minimal sum, okay? Because you are buying good data here. All right. So next, we're looking at supply. Are there a lot of competition in the same area? And is the cost of marketing very high, right? So just now we look at the cost of keywords. In this case, it was about anything from less than $1 to almost $2, okay? And then, so one of the ways we look into competition is really just to Google, because after all, that's all the websites that's out there trying to get a piece of your attention in Google itself. So we can go to here in this case, you Google UAE's website. And then what we did was we typed in Moss Wall Dubai. And in this case, it may seem an intimidating number with almost 5 million results, because this 4.8 million is talking about any website that mentions Moss, Wall, or Dubai, and it doesn't have to be that particular order. So in this case, yes, it is a lot of websites talking about Moss. Yep. But let's say if I am specifically targeting for people who are searching for most war Dubai. In this case, customers are ready to purchase already. The intention to come in is much higher. And you can see that when I add in this all entitled, it's using this specific sequence of keywords called most war Dubai. And then we have much lesser number of results. So in this case, anything less than 1,000 is actually not too competitive in terms of the number of websites out there. Okay. So before I go to the next question, this is a way for you to have a rough gauge of the numbers out there. I mean, which are the countries that would be good to target, and is leveraging on Google's tools to shortlist your markets. Let's say at a time when you don't have actual networks or business contacts in that particular country. So this is a good gauge of how do you shortlist the countries that you want to target. Okay. So I'm getting ready for my next poll. I'm just curious for participants who already are overseas, where are you overseas? And for the others who are looking to go overseas, what markets are you looking to expand into? So using the keyword planner, for example, for specific ASEAN countries that you're looking at, you can actually search based on those keywords. Search on the keyword planner, then you have a better sense of how big the market is. Okay, great. So we have almost 80% going to ASEAN countries. That's awesome. Okay. And specifically why I brought out China and Korea, I'll share with you shortly. Okay, so yep. Okay, so I'll speak more about ASEAN countries later on as well. Okay. All right, so specifically why I highlighted China and Korea is because as much as Google is all over the world, is actually banned in China. So unfortunately, what I shared with you just now, the tips on looking at the countries, the country's size and number of searches, the demand doesn't quite work for China because they use Baidu. But the same case, they have their own Baidu tools, keyword tools that you'll be able to search. And the same case for Korea. Actually, Korea, people use Naver a lot more than Google. So if you want to do SEO or SEM, you should do it in the Naver search engine instead of Google. So these are two, I would say, unusual countries. But otherwise, I would say most of the rest of the world still use Google. More than 80% of the world still use Google as their main search engine. Okay. All right. So just now I talked about discovering new markets. So then now next, we want to see how to test the market, let's say after we have decided on one, or is it worth it to go in? So usually when we want to do a test, we want to do an experiment, we want to keep it low cost. And of course, if we can get the results fast to know whether it's effective or not, that would be a good way to do the experiment. And before you bring in all your resources into that particular market, let's say before you go set up a physical entity, you want to test market using online, this is a good way. So usually the criteria we think is speed and the cost. And of course, we want to test for effectiveness. And in this case, we would always recommend Google Ads because we talked about it being fast and low cost. So these are some of the strategies that we use to check out that particular market itself. All right, so in this case, I need to shift your mindset here to buying Google Ads, search engine marketing. So let's say if you are going to ASEAN markets, especially let's say to Indonesia, actually the market is so big. But a lot of times, if you go search for the keywords in English, it's very minimal. A lot of times the numbers are sometimes even lower than Singapore for English language. But in Bahasa Indonesia, the numbers are a lot higher. In fact, in the tens of thousands usually. So you go to the individual countries search engine again to see what are the ads that are being shown up. So usually what we like to do is to change IP using the free VPN, because that's the way to be able to see the ads in that country. Because a lot of times here in Singapore, we can't see the ads in Indonesia. Yeah, especially if it's a Bahasa ad. So this is one of the way we go in to check out the other ads in a different language, because what we think or the way we translate may not be the actual local language. So you want to see when you key in that particular keyword, is it relevant? So you have to see the ads in those language and the competitors. Are they similar, selling similar products and services? And to do a bit of market research, what are they offering? What is a good catch, a call to action for these customers in that country? All right, so we would then set aside a small budget to that particular country. So for example, in Indonesia, usually we like to test Jakarta, Surabaya, Medan, the bigger ones. Yeah. But the objective is to test effectiveness so that you can shortlist your keywords, because there's many ways of saying the same thing for your product, for example, especially if it's in a different language. Are we sure that we are using a good translation and a language that that particular country understands? And then we'll suggest you to always have enough money to run for at least about 2 months, so that you want to test market. I can't tell, you must have enough data to see that there's enough data to make your decisions. And so in this case, we suggest to put money aside for about 2 months to run your ads, and it can be targeted at very specific areas. So perhaps even Surabaya versus Jakarta, you might be seeing very different type of results. So depending on the campaign that we run, it can be customized all the way down to the different cities as well. Okay, so one of the ways that we do customization is customized landing pages. So let's say if you have a very big website of like hundreds of products, and you don't want to translate everything because it's going to be very costly. So usually we test out, let's say with a few products with customized landing page that has the particular language of the country's language. And then after we have done the competitors research, right, they say, what can we offer to this market? And at the same time, what can you offer that would be an attractive enough offer for them to catch on? And again, is localized language is definitely, you have to look at customized keywords. In this case, even in the English language, you can see here in Singapore versus the UAE. In this case, you can see at the bottom of your screen, even though there are searches for vertical greens in both areas, interestingly, the number of searches for Singapore for vertical green is actually much higher than UAE, even though UAE, you would think is a bigger market. So then in this case, what we suggest is we might look into Arabic even for UAE. Right, so customizing your contents to that country is important, and also because it speaks to them, especially if you can add things in that are relevant to their culture. Okay, so then after we have tested the market, we want to make sure, and we feel that this is a market that we want to go into for the long term, then definitely you need to localize your strategies and to refine your contents to be catered to that audience. And in this case, when we are looking at the long term, actually we look more into doing SEO, search engine optimization. Okay, so certain things to think about, specific domains. And then again, we can make use of analytics and Google My Business. These are tools, they're free Google tools, which I'll share more. And of course, looking at your loading speed, especially in the ASEAN countries, a lot of times people are actually using the handphone, and they may not have the best mobile networks or the Wi-Fi. So is your website able to load well in those areas where internet speed is actually slower? So here we look at specific domains. Do we want to buy .com, .my, .id? So usually we like to buy the name, our company's name, to protect the branding, because there may be a lot of copycats out there. So as far as possible, we want to buy the domain, but doesn't mean that you have to create another website just for .com, .my. Because a lot of times, let's say if I'm targeting Malaysia, actually an English website will do. There's no need to translate. So in this case, if I am able to, if it's for English language, then we can suggest you to have different pages like /sg/id/my, where if you are able to customize the contents. Because for example, Malaysia's ringgit is actually lower than ours, then are you able to customize the pricing, a different pricing in Malaysia? So if you are able to have different pricing, you can have the different pages to show up for that specific country, and so that there won't be any price comparison between Singapore and Malaysia. And in this case, you want to customize the web contents as much as possible. Yeah. But otherwise, actually, if you're just targeting areas that are using English and you don't have the resources to do more pages, it's okay to stick to just the same website, but buy the domain to protect your branding, because there might be copycats out there. And then you do a redirect back to your original website. Okay. And then we want to look into Google Analytics. This is actually Google's tool for actually measuring traffic coming into your website. How many people are coming to your website? How much time are they spending? So then we can look into, based on the language and location, and also what are the keywords that they are searching for. Right? Then when we have the data, then only we can refine the strategies. And this is usually how we also measure ROI, through looking at the number of goal conversions. So you can be very specific. When you set a goal conversion, you can say, okay, I want to measure how many people submitted inquiries that came in through the search engine. When they Googled for organic, in the organic traffic, they came in, versus how many people submitted an inquiry through Google Ads. So in this case, you can be very specific in terms of your setting your goals, so that you can measure the ROI. Okay. And then, of course, if you're overseas and let's say you are looking to open a shop that you hope to have people come in to walk in, like say a cafe or a clinic, it's very important to customize the Google My Business information in that country's map. Right, so you want to actively add in images and reviews, so that you can, you need to improve on your credibility in a brand new area where people don't know about your name yet. And of course, add in easy ways to contact you. So for example, having your contact form sent through emails, or what we like to do is add a WhatsApp button, because WhatsApp is international. You have a WhatsApp button in your landing page or in your website, people can contact you directly. So this is a good way of getting inquiries, because a lot of times people are too lazy to type in their name, type in their email address. The more information that you ask in a contact form, the less likely they would complete the form and submit the inquiry. So usually we like to add a WhatsApp button so that the inquiry comes in quickly. All right. And then after that, of course, for businesses that are targeting the ASEAN markets, this is especially important because the internet there might be slower. So we want to look into the loading speed, right? So in this case, is going back to Think with Google is another tool called Test My Site. And you can see how fast is the page loading. And then certainly within 3 seconds, if your website is not showing up, a lot of times people will already exit. So the loading speed will affect the user experience. So this is important to look into. And especially as you add in new contents, we want to make sure that you have a good experience and not overload the website such that it becomes too slow to load. Okay. And then Test My Site, they will actually have a lot of recommendations for different types of improvements. I know some might be quite technical, and this is where I guess your SEO, SEM vendors come in to help you address some of these problems. Okay. And here I'd like to share with you a case study of our client who has been reaching out to overseas. They are slightly affected by COVID right now, but before COVID, actually the doctors themselves have been getting medical tourism. So patients coming in from Indonesia, but through the Google tools, we're also able to help them to get patients coming in from different parts of Southeast Asia, from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. And interestingly, the doctors themselves went to this hospital in Myanmar to conduct surgeries. And here we did for them English ads instead of Burmese ads because they were looking for more expats who can pay for their services. So in this case, the customization that we did was targeting the Myanmar market, but not through the Burmese language. And the orthopedic sector, we have been working with them since 2013. And 2 years ago, they went IPO and became a listed company and became a comprehensive healthcare service where they not only have orthopedic, they have dermatology, ear, nose, throat specialists, and the rest. So this is a way of how we grow together with our customers from 2013 until today. And of course, the more entities they create, the more websites they have, the more business for us as well. All right, oops, okay. So yes, just a quick recap on the strategies that we have. So at the top of the funnel, we have discover new markets, and then we test the market using Google Ads. And then after that, usually what we do at the end, as we localize for each market, is a combination of SEM and SEO. But of course, this depends on your budget, and then to see what it would be more useful. And of course, as we optimize, they will have a better sense of whether the ads are working well, and then we decide to end the ads or to carry on. Okay. All right, so here's a list of the free Google tools that I would like to share with you. Later on, I will send this deck to Tiffany, and she'll be able to share it with the rest of you. These are actually mostly free tools in Google that really, if you want to do SEO, SEM, you can't run away from these tools. So if you have all these tools to help you, then why would you want to engage a vendor? Should you still engage a vendor? Well, I like to say to my clients, especially those surgeons, right? You do what you do best. Their hourly rate is so much higher. Can they be reading up on Google consistently? Definitely. I'm sure they would even do it very well. But do they want to spend the time to keep up with the changes in Google? Because every 2-3 months, Google changes its algorithm. And I'm sure in terms of the competition that we see, there's always going to be new websites, new competitors coming in. So it actually requires consistent efforts, be it in SEO or SEM. You have to consistently maintain and optimize based on the data that we have. So usually this is what we share with clients is, you do what you do best, and we help you with your online presence. And what are some of the criteria that you want to think about when you look for vendors? Because I'm sure you have met many vendors and they say, oh, we want to, we help you to optimize for 10 keywords for a certain amount. And really, actually, it's not just about keyword rankings. Are the keywords good enough? Because really, we want to look into the number of people coming in. Are they relevant? Are they staying in your website longer? Or do they leave straight away? And that's where we have the bounce rate, where after the first page off they go. And if your bounce rates are very high, you're not keeping your customers in the website, unlikely there would be any conversions. So are we also tracking conversions in terms of, let's say, inquiries, WhatsApp calls or phone calls, or actually an actual sale for an e-commerce site? And content creation. A lot of times, you have to keep the website updated. Let's say if you have a blog and your blog was last updated like 1 year ago, then people will think, is your website still active? Is your business still alive? And good content creation keeps up with the times, and the user will feel that, oh, you know, you are right up there with keeping up with the latest trends. And Google values a lot on new contents on the website, because think of it again, who are Google's customers? Is us who are searching for information. We always want the latest and the most relevant information. So it's important to continuously have good new contents that are written well for the readers in the site. And in terms of Google Ads, of course, certainly we're looking at the number of conversions and how many people click through. CTR is click-through rate, how many people clicked onto your website, and what is the cost per click that are used continuously paying Google at a very high cost per click. And if the cost can be lowered, it means that actually your vendor is doing a good job for you. All right. And then so today I'd like to share how we can help. We have a free website audit report for our participants here, and a 30-minute consultation online. And you can submit your information in this tiny URL. So I'll keep this open for until 31st December. So we'll help you to run an audit on your website to see what is the country that you want to target, and see whether the information you have on their website is relevant for that particular country. Do you have the necessary keywords? And also, is your website loading well for that country? All right. So again, why us? Because actually we walk the journey with our clients, having experience in both English and Chinese digital marketing channels. And we like to grow together with our clients. You know, as you grow, we grow together, our revenue as well. Okay. And so this is my information. I'll be sharing this with I'll be sharing this with Tiffany, and then can contact me anytime to ask about your website. So with that, I thank you, and we'll pass back to Tiffany.
Okay, and thank you, Jing Yan. Thank you so much for the presentation. Just maybe a quick note, okay, for the participants who want to have the URL, probably that Jing Yan has showed previously. We'll be sending out the presentation deck. So inside the presentation deck, we'll have the URL just in case if you want a free, audit or consultation from them. Okay, and without further ado, okay, now we would like to proceed on with the Q&A session. For those of you who would like to receive the presentation deck, as some of y'all have already mentioned in the chat group, do note that we'll be sending it to the participants who have attended the webinar session today after the event. So without further ado, we will be having Jing Yan back for the Q&A session. If you have any questions for our speaker, please feel free to submit them by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and type in your questions. Do note that as we have limited time for the Q&A sessions, we will not be able to answer all questions. Thus, we seek your kind understanding that should your questions not be able to answer during this session, please contact SEOciety directly with their contact details featured on the screen, or email SCCCI and we will forward your enquiries to them too. Now, so Jing Yan, back to the Q&A session, okay?
Sure.
Maybe to get the ball rolling, where we have participants, keying in their questions and stuff. We do have some participants that has already actually posted their questions, during their registrations to us. So I think one of the major questions that we always see a lot of people is asking is that, what budget should they set aside for Google marketing per month? I think as moving forward, how do I know that, $100 is enough or not? Or, how much is enough, and how do I track the ROI at the end of the day?
Right, certainly. Of course, it again depends on how big the country is, but usually we suggest to start at a $500 budget. You can spread it out over 30 days, so that's about slightly over $10 a day. And because actually the cost of ads are actually more expensive here in Singapore. So if you are targeting ASEAN countries, it's actually good enough. So $500 as a test market for about 2 months. So that's about 1,000. So that's a good way of getting the data. And then before we do a full launch marketing. Yeah.
Okay, Kensha, I think, I think for the very start, for some of the participants who are new to SEO or SEM, Jing has really gave so much free tools for you guys to, learn from. So maybe for the start, you can try testing out certain tools and stuff like that. And then as we move on, to further in depth, that's where probably you will need to consult Jing Yan's expertise to come in already. Now, okay, moving forward to the list of questions that I have, I think, okay, the first question I have, on the Q&A button is, Imran with us. Okay, Imran question is that, do you recommend them to run a SEM where website is not yet being SEO optimized? Okay, in another words, they probably are a new startup. They have a new website. Okay, they probably haven't get the optimize it properly because it probably takes 3 to 6 months to get their website maximum optimized properly. So should they run the SEM together with the SEO, or should they wait for after 3 to 6 months where the SEO is being optimized, then they run the SEM campaign?
So in fact, we will suggest, yes, it's good to run your SEM. Like how I said, to test the market, even in Singapore, you need to test the market to see what are the keywords that are working for you. So in fact, running SEM first to get the keywords to see which are the effective keywords. Then from there, you use these same keywords to do SEO. Actually, that would be even more effective. So yes, we suggest that run SEM. And if your whole website, let's say, even if it's not done up, you can just have a few landing pages as a start, because sometimes you're not too sure what are the interests of these customers, what are they exactly looking for. So once you have all this information, it can also help you in your content creation for the rest of the website. Yep. So as long as you have a good landing page that is also optimized on the handphone, on the mobile, that's good enough to run SEM.
Okay, thanks, Ian. I think the good thing about SEM is that it at least helps your website to be on the first page.
Yes, the visibility. Yes.
The most important part at the end of the day. Okay, now moving on to next, I have with us, a participant asking on, other than Google Keywords Planner, what other free or paid tools that are reliable to search for new keywords?
Yeah, so we also use this other one called Uber Suggest, UBER Suggest. Yeah, so this is also a free keyword tool. There are actually many free keyword tools out there. You just have to Google, but usually we use Keyword Planner and Uber Suggest. Yes.
Okay, Kensha. Thanks, Jing Yan down there. Okay, next up I have Janelle. Janelle, I think she's new to creating a website, everything. So the question is that she has learned just how to create a landing page. Where should she launch or place them, and how does she check where is her customer hangout, especially for B2B or B2C? Now, I do have a lot of participants who always come back with me with this question. They are targeting at B2B customers, and they're also targeting at B2C at the end of the day. Right. Now, when they have a web page, how should they maybe, is there, things that they should take note of, especially when they are doing SEM, or SEO, is that the landing page an important part, or, the different little page are the more important part?
Right. So in this case, I think we need to take a step back. B2C and B2B, usually the messaging is very different. So you shouldn't lump them on the same landing page, because for example, B2B, you want to have more bulk purchases. So immediately people should be inquiring rather than buy directly from your site, for example, right? So usually the messaging will be different. I would suggest to create 2 different landing pages, one for B2B and one for B2C. And then in this case, it will be very clear when you direct your ads. One is the messaging is for B2B, it goes to the B2B landing page, and the ad copy for B2C will go to the B2C copy landing page. And then where do you add them? Really just add them back to your website. It can be a different URL. In fact, usually it's hidden from the menu page. So it's really for us to track those that come directly from the ads itself. For the landing pages, we will always say track it back to, tie it back to Google Analytics, then you can have the data to work on later on.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Ian. I hope that answers Janelle's questions.
Yeah.
Okay, next I have Jasper. Well, Jasper is asking the $1 million question. You know, what percentage of the conversion rate is considered good in your opinion? Now, I understand that there's a lot of trial and error, you know, that you talk about, especially if you are going to overseas. So maybe, you know, can you give a bit of benchmark number that, hey, you at least need this percentage of conversion rate, or else probably you have to rethink about your strategy again, you know?
So it really depends on country, on industry. It's very tough to say because, for example, if I'm buying keywords or having keywords that are branded keywords, conversions are usually much higher, like 10%. But let's say if it's a core kind of market, usually 1 to 2%, I would say is even, again, it's really 1 to 2% conversion, but also it depends on what's the ROI. Because for example, when I'm getting patients for doctors, honestly, the percentage is very low, but every patient that comes in the ROI is much higher than because they come in for surgery, right? So it's like a 10,000 to 20,000 kind of deal as compared to my Google Ads budget. So it really depends on your industry. All I can say is really, as long as it keeps improving, this is a way to go to optimize based on the conversion rate. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's a lot of you know, trialing and testing and making sure that, hey, this works and what's not and everything. Okay, so next I have, you know, I think Michelle. Michelle is, you know, want to know that how do I know that I'm picking the right keywords for the website content? Now, I understand from Jing Yan there's a certain limit of the number of SEO keywords that we can choose. So picking the right keywords is very, very important for each of the company websites and stuff. So do they have to keep changing, as in, like, you know, what you say, the algorithms keep changing in Google, you know? So is it every 3 months I must change my keywords? And how do I know am I picking the right keywords at the end of the day?
Sure. So usually what happens is, again, we look back into the analytics, we see, okay, first of all, let's say your current website, you have not done any SEO, SEM, install analytics to see what are the keywords that people are searching to come into your website. Because from there, you can pick the good ones. And then, of course, using Keyword Planner, you can expand on more keywords. So usually we said there's really no right ones, but you can keep expanding. Because as you add new blog articles, for example, you can target a different set of keywords. So actually, you have your foundation keywords, which usually we don't change because we spend like at least a good 2 weeks, which are the fundamental contents. And then from there, as we see, hey, a lot of people search for this particular keyword to come in. So, okay, this is the interest that they have for this particular content. Then we write more blog articles related to this particular content.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Ian. I hope that you know, answers Michelle's questions down there at the end of the day. Now, moving forward down there. Okay, I do have another participant, Andy. Andy, you know, think his website is more or less, you know, in the top ranking already. So his question is that if your rank is among the top 3, you know, search engine is really being optimized, do you still need SEM? And if so, what's the reason to it?
Yeah. Okay. So usually what I would suggest in this case is search for the keyword that you're already in the top 3. Do you see a lot of other ads? Because usually for competitive keywords, you see 4 ads straight away, right? Then by the time you need to scroll down to see that you're even the top one, it takes a lot of scrolling already because 4 ads each take up some space. So the fact that people have to scroll, sometimes is not, you will lose out on that customer because they might have clicked on the ad and went on to the competitor's website. So usually, even if we're ranked among the top 3, we'll still suggest to do some SEM because having multiple links actually increases your chance of being clicked on, your website being shown. Yeah.
Okay, can sure. Thanks, Jing Yan. I hope that's answered. Andy, I think certain keywords, probably we've missed out. It's good to have SEM, to help to
Yes, certainly.
cover on our website down there. Okay, next up, I do have Edwin. Okay, Edwin specifically is on Indonesian market. Now we're always talking about global. So
Yes.
his question is specifically on the Indonesian market. Will English search word is good enough or need bahasa Indonesia? Will website in Indonesian be helpful in improving my SEO? Yes, Jing Yan, I think this is a very good question, especially a lot of participants, they like to go to ASEAN countries, especially, even when we say Malaysia, do we need the local language, to be integrated into our website, or how should we go about?
Yeah, so usually as a test, what we do is, when I don't know bahasa, then I will go Google Translate, and then we just have a quick test. I copy and paste the bahasa keyword into the keyword planner, and we have a sense of whether this is how big of a search is there for this keyword. Generally, in ASEAN, our experience, other than Malaysia, our experience is that the local language, be it Vietnamese or Laotian, Burmese, bahasa, is usually much higher than the English keywords. But again, it really depends on who your target audience. For example, in the case of the doctor just now, the example I gave, they were targeting the expats, so they were okay to just have English keywords because they wanted the expats who had higher spending power to be the ones who are searching for it. So we didn't buy any ads in Burmese at all.
Okay, can sure. Yep. Thanks, Jing Yan. I hope that's answered Edwin's question. Now, I understand that some of the participants may be asking Jing Yan to do some demonstration, on the spot. But do bear in mind that we have limited time. Further questions that if we are not able to answer during the sessions, Jing Yan will try to follow up after the whole event, or you may actually just email her directly if you have a specific, questions pertaining that you need Jing Yan's help in to show a demonstration and stuff. Now, moving forward, I do have another question for Lee Sen. Lee Sen is, I think they are noodle manufacturers. So the question is, do you think Google Ads is important for them if they want to target consumers? Don't think consumers will go to Google to search for noodles instead. Noodles in general. I think more for the commodities products kind of manufacturers, people don't just sugars and stuff like that. So maybe Jing Yan, you can give them an advice on how should they go about.
In this case, I'm assuming that you are more looking towards B2B. You are targeting people who want to distribute your products in the other countries, right? So again, it goes back to the keyword planner. You can see that the number of people searching for noodles might be not very high, but you can be very specific to search in terms of the keywords. So instead of searching for noodles, you can search for noodles factory, for example, noodles manufacturer. I'm sure there are people searching for those kind of keywords, but maybe it's only 10 per month, for example. But if these 10 are searching for noodles manufacturer, then they are the target audience that you want. So this is the good thing of Google Ads is it's only when your ads are being clicked on that you get to pay, and that you have to pay. So there's actually no harm if your ads are there, but it's not relevant because we want to make sure in this case, your ads only show up for noodles manufacturer, but not noodles itself, because many B2C consumers might actually be looking for noodles. Yeah, but we don't want all these irrelevant clicks. And so this is some of the strategies that we use to be very specific and effective in our Google Ads strategy.
Okay, Jing Yan. Thanks, Jing Yan. I think it all boils down to the type of target audience. So be mindful of the type of keywords because like what Jing Yan said, consumers probably won't be looking for noodles manufacturers at the end of the day down there. Okay, and next up, I have a very interesting question by Jacinta. This question I've seen before. Yes, a lot of companies, did face this. It's on legal issues. So her question is it legal to use your competitor's name as keyword? She has experienced that her competitor using her company name as their keyword. I didn't even know that until a regular customer has informed Jessica about it. So I think, yes, Jing Yan, probably can you
It's
advise?
actually a very common issue that we see because, for example, a lot of competitors buy our client, the doctor's brand name. I mean, the doctor's name themselves. So they can't trademark their own name. So in Google's eyes, actually, is good business for them. So there's no such thing as legal or illegal. But let's say if you have a trademark certification, you can go to Google and say that, hey, I have the trademark. So people who want to buy my keywords would actually have to pay a lot more than if my own URL is paying for the keywords. Yeah, so this is one of the ways that you can, you can't stop people from buying your company's name, unfortunately, but you can discourage them because you're making them pay a higher price. Let's say if you have a trademark for that particular name. Yeah.
Okay, Ken, sure. You know, I don't think it's fair if you go and buy back your competitor trademarks. At the end of the day, I think it's a never-ending issues there. So yeah, hope that the advice from Jing Yan is helpful for you know, Jacinta that side.
Yeah.
Now moving forward, we do have another participant, Lee Xian again. You know, the question is, right, is microsite different from landing page? Would it affect your SEO and SEM, which is better? Now I think a lot of people got a bit of confusing, like, you know, landing page and your different microsites. You know, when you optimize, you know, how you should optimize it at the end of the day, and you know, should you promote your SEM targeting to your microsite, or should it back to your landing page and stuff like that? So maybe Jing Yan, can we have your advice on it?
Sure. Essentially, a microsite is a cluster of landing pages. So I would say it really depends on what's the content that you want to put out there. A microsite is useful if, let's say, you don't intend to use it. Let's say you build it for Christmas, or you build it for 2020, and it won't be so relevant for 2021 anymore. So usually a microsite is for specific occasions, and we would only do SEM for them typically, because let's say if you're not going to use it after the Christmas season, then there's no point to do SEO. But unless you intend to use it every year, use back the same URL, then it's worthwhile to do SEO on them. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that's which is better or not. It's just microsite is a cluster of landing pages, many landing pages. Yeah.
Okay, Ken, sure. Thanks, Ian, down there. Okay, next up, I think I do have participants asking on the chat box down there also. So we do have Rita. Rita question is like, do they need to continuously invest on SEO, even though most of our keywords are on page one? Now, I think there's a common question, like, you know, people have already optimized their landing page, everything, they're already on the top of the list in Google's already. So do they have to continue to, you know, keep investing in finding the next keywords? Or, you know, what's the optimum time that maybe they should look back into finding the right keywords?
Okay. So I think also depends on your industry. So for example, with healthcare, medical specialist type, we keep doing SEO for them because there's always going to be new competitors. It's a very competitive industry. But let's say you're doing very niche areas, and there's very few suppliers or websites that are selling the same things, then you can, I guess, stop the SEM. Usually we say once you have good SEO, there's no need to do SEM. But usually we suggest SEO to continue even though you are ranking very well, because you never know how the Google algorithm will change and affect you. Because for example, a few years ago they had Google Panda, Penguin, and suddenly from top 5, I would say, even top 3, a lot of the websites dropped to less than top 50. So you never know how those affect you. And it's really it's like how you want to keep your physical shop clean and nice for customers to come in. It's the same case for your website. You want to keep it updated, keep targeting new keywords so that customers can come in. Yep.
Okay, maybe on top of that, I would just like to add on down there, you know, so,
yes.
You know, how do they ensure that, you know, to make sure that their company is fully optimized, like the web page fully optimized? Like, do they every time change the image itself, or going in, you know, to just change the keywords here and there a bit? Yeah, to ensure that it's always being optimized properly.
So usually, I mean, for us, what we do is foundation of the website has to be done well. We do the audits to see whether your loading speed, your images are optimized. Then in terms of the website, the foundation keywords, those that we're targeting, are they already approaching to the top? If they are, then we would look into new keywords. If they are not, then what can we do? So part of it is we also look into some of the off-page SEO, which I didn't touch on as much today because of the lack of time. But having visibility in other websites to link back to your website is actually useful in terms of bringing up your rankings as well. So I would say SEO is a consistent effort. Is a way of, I mean, in a way, it is a shop that you want to keep up for customers to, so you can keep it clean, keep it refreshed, keep it up to date. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jing Yan. I think same goes back to Rita. Rita has actually has two questions going on. So the next question is that, do they need to engage the country local SEO company, for example, if they want to market for that country? Now, I believe, like say, if you're going to Indonesia, do you find probably a SEO consultancy in Indonesia to help to optimize the website? Especially having language, being a key issue in those countries.
Yeah. So, I mean, from my experience, clients like to work with one point of contact. I mean, let's say if you have an English site, Indonesian, Japanese site, all these, certainly some agencies can do multiple languages. But of course, if you are engaging those local vendors, then some of the criteria to think about what I shared with you earlier, because, I mean, them being overseas, sometimes if they don't answer your email, don't answer your calls, and so it's very difficult to trace back. We have had clients who come and share such poor experiences with hiring overseas vendors to us. So it's things to take note. Certainly you can engage with the locals, because in terms of the language, yeah, there are times where we tell customers, I'm sorry, I can't do Vietnam, for example. I can't do Vietnamese sites, yeah. And then I share with them, oh, perhaps you want to look into the vendors in those countries, yeah.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Ian. I hope Rita does answer your question. Now back to the Q&A icon down here. I do have Philip. Now Philip's question is, what's the use of Google Tag Manager? Isn't it the same as part of Google Analytics? So, moving forward, what can you address on?
Okay. So actually, Google Tag Manager is a good tool that we use when we run Google Ads. It's actually very similar to, and it adds on to the functions of Google Analytics. So it's another platform that tracks the traffic, and it adds on a lot more details of the analytics. I didn't share more just now because usually when people look at analytics already, they feel quite headache looking at all these numbers. Yeah, but Google Tag Manager actually is an important way of adding more details to your analytics.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Jing Yan. Now there. Okay, next off, I think we do have Michelle. Michelle is kind of, I think she needs a clearer understanding of will the different website hosting and website builders, WordPress, Webmix impact the SEO results?
Yeah.
Probably you can clarify what's the difference of it and how.
Sure. I mean, so for example, Wix and all that is easy for people who want to build their own websites. But in general, we say for SEO purposes, WordPress is actually a better platform in terms of doing rankings for SEO rankings. WordPress is a better content management system. There's a lot more things that you can customize when we want to do manipulate the website for SEO. Yeah. So Wix and all that is actually very easy to build your site. All these website builders, but make sure that they also have good functions for you to, for example, do edits to your meta title, meta descriptions. Those will help in your SEO rankings.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Jing Yan. Now I do have another question by Lisa. Okay, Lisa has two questions, combined together. Now her question is that, for example, if she's looking for a new product to sell in Surabaya, example Chinese tea. If on Google Keywords Planner there is 100 to 10,000 search per month on the word Chinese tea, does this implement that she should or should not sell Chinese tea in Surabaya? And when you say about test market, what's the meaning of test market? How to go about it at the end of the day?
Right. So in this case, 100 to 10,000 is such a wide range. Usually in this case, I would suggest you can go to Uber, suggest keyword tool to check for the keywords. Or if you can pay Google, honestly, you just put in your credit card, pay Google $5. I mean, just buy some ads, then immediately you can see for yourself If it's 10,000, I'm sure it's a much better market, right? But again, it also depends on what's high demand, but it's also high competition. And then usually when we say test market is we use Google Ads. Google Ads to have quick visibility so that we can see whether it's effective or not. And then also, like I shared just now, check out the Google in Indonesia search engine and see what are the competitors doing. And from there is a good way to compete. I mean, to see what's the competition so that when you buy the ads, you know what kind of offers can you make for your clients, what kind of call to actions in your ad copy. So paying Google in this case would be a good way to get the refined number of keywords. I mean, number of searches for that particular keyword. Yeah.
Okay, can sure. Thanks, Jing Yan, on it. Okay, we don't really have much time to it. I'm going to pick up the last one or two questions, have by the participants. And if any of the participants have any more in-depth questions, because some of them I know is very detailed, that this demonstration. So sorry that we are not doing demo at this period. So we will be informing Jing Yan about it. And, from down there, you can either contact Jing Yan directly to understand more about your questions, or, Jing Yan will do a follow-up with you. Now, I do have Philip on the line. Philip says that I think this is quite common, is that his keywords he used reported to be highly searched words in Singapore, but high majority of the visitors are also coming from Europe and US. Why is that happening? Now I understand that in overseas definitely the population is definitely higher than in Singapore down there. So does that means that from his situation is it means that his company products is very popular in Europe and US, or why is this happening?
Okay, so usually in this case, we'll say, okay, look at the, what are the keywords that these visitors are searching? And then to see whether the visitors from Europe and US, are they from organic traffic or are they from referral traffic? Because sometimes referral traffic tends to be spam. So it might be from some link and they have spam bots coming in. So we want to make sure that it's coming in through organic traffic. Then from organic traffic, you can see what are the keywords that they are searching for. One interesting thing that we noticed for one of our clients, they are art magazine. So they talked about Colosseum. And for some reason, they have many customers coming in from Philippines, even though it's a publication here in Singapore. And it turns out that Colosseum is the name of a place in Philippines. And we were ranking for that keyword. And so a lot of people were coming in, but in this case, it was not relevant. There was not a relevant keyword for them. Yeah, so to search where your audience is coming in, is it organic traffic versus referral links? And then if they are organic traffic, what are the keywords they are searching in? So that you can see, hey, if it's relevant to your industry, then perhaps it's a market that you can grow into. Yeah.
Okay, can sure. Thanks, Jing Yan. I think most important is for participants to actually look at the Google Analytics to understand whether are these keywords is a once off. How long with the keyword that they are looking for, are they inside your website or they are just bouncing off, coming and clicking out. I think there's a lot of free tools by Google. Do explore. I would highly recommend you to explore all the Google Analytics tools and everything. Now I do have the last questions. Okay. Before we end off the whole sessions itself, is by participants where they were saying that they are flexible plastic manufacturers. Okay, they want to know how can they use SEO or SEM to market their product, especially now that mostly or everyone is promoting to stop using plastic. Now I see that they do have some difficulties, because if they do not market correctly, people will be Googling for stop the use of plastic at the end of the day. So I think they are a bit in a tricky situation. So Jing Yan, maybe you can just give an advice, how to go about to make sure that every dollar spent in the marketing, optimizing, and everything is all being worth.
Okay, so in this case, it comes back to the keywords. For example, people might be searching for sustainability, so I'm just thinking of keywords. For example, plastic sustainability. Then in this case, perhaps you want to make sure that you add in sustainability as your negative keyword, and your ads will not show for such keyword because they are unlikely to be buying your products. So you would want to find keywords that are very specific to have, I mean, people who are ready to buy your products. I'm not so familiar with the plastics industry, but I mean, I'm just throwing some ideas out here. So for example, like bulk purchase plastic cups or something, then in this case, you can be very specific. Even though the number of searches may be very low, but when people are searching for such specific keywords, you are more likely to close the deal. And you don't buy keywords that are so general, like plastic. Is that one you would get a lot of unnecessary customers, and that won't convert to a sale. Yeah. So, and then make sure you add in negative keywords like environment. I mean, in this case, you don't want to shop for plastics when people are searching for environment. Yeah.
I think, thanks, Jing Yan. I think the most important thing is to understand, you know, what is the keyword that your customers are looking for, especially if they're in a manufacturing line. Most probably their customers are all the distributors or B2B. So probably some of your keywords will be other than plastic manufacturers, can be plastic distributors and, you know, this kind of keywords, rather than normal consumers will be finding the keywords of like, oh, stop using straws, you know, this kind of, or environmental friendly, this kind of keywords down there. So, you know, with that said, okay, I think we have the last question I'm going to pick the last question because I think this one will summarize everything at the end of the day by Edwin. He would just like to know, is there any one-stop website where they can learn from all the related tools that we have said? Definitely, Jing Yan PowerPoint slides will be sent to everyone. So she has, you know, a template with all the participants, you know, from all the tools where participants can refer to. And definitely Google is a good place to go. And maybe Jing Yan, you can just give a bit more tips, you know, where to, you know, find for all the other questions and stuff.
Okay. If you're keen to really learn in depth, there's a website called Google Academy. It really shows you everything about digital marketing in Google. Yeah, and also, of course, then from there, you can see all the different tools that they have. But I mean, it may be a bit much, but the good thing is they have a lot of videos that you can watch to self-learn as well.
Okay, can sure. Thank you very much, Jing Yan. I hope, you know, the participants have enjoyed, you know, the sessions for today, learning from Jing Yan about all the SEO, SEM, marketing, everything. I understand that, you know, within this 1 hour, we can't really cover too much in depth because there's a lot to learn about this whole SEO journey, everything to optimize. But not to worry, you know, if you have any other questions, please contact Jing Yan directly, okay? And if you lost Jing Yan's contact, just email SCCCI and we will forward it to her also. So being said that, we've come to the end of the event. We hope all the participants have enjoyed the session, and we will see you again in future in SCCCI event. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jing Yan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.